welcome back to my channel for another video. My name is Diana and I live here in the Canadian prairies with my husband, our two beautiful daughters, and our dog Scout. I create cross-stitch patterns under the name Diana Bloom Designs, and generally I come here on YouTube to give a monthly Flosstube video where I go over all of my stitching, any patterns that I have to release, and just give you general updates. Today I have something a little bit different planned. I've been feeling like I really want to be a little bit more present here on YouTube. I really just love the community and I just want to share a little bit more. But I can't probably do more Flosstube videos. I don't really have enough content to share. And I've been feeling really excited at the idea of doing these design behind the scenes videos that are a little bit more of a vlog style and kind of give you a peek at a pattern that I'm working on that's coming up. So I think we should give it a try for today, and I'm very curious to see if you guys like it and if you would want that kind of video as a regular update going forward. So basically what my plan would be to do my regular Flosstube videos every month, and then in the 2-week gap, do these design behind the scenes so that they would alternate and I'd have a video going out every 2 weeks instead of every month. So yeah, let's just give it a go. For today, I want to share with you a pattern that I'm working on that at the time you're seeing this will be coming out in about 2 weeks. This is my pattern for March, and I'm working on something that's very springtime and fresh. I've shown the colors on the linen before, which I will do again in case you didn't see those videos. But I want to go a little bit more in depth today and show some of the sketches that I've done and the inspiration behind it. And then I will take you along with me during my day and show you how I try to sneak in little bits of work here and there around being a full-time mom. And then largely I'll show you the work that I get up to at the end of the day. And for various reasons, mostly involving very loud and rambunctious playing, all of the vlog style content will be voiced over, just because it gets pretty noisy around here, even just with 2 kids. So let's get started with sketches and inspiration. This is kind of nice too because I get to have my first very hot coffee while I'm filming. There we go, noisy old chair. Because I actually got up early to film this so I could do the intro, then film through the day, and then I'll film at night. I'm definitely a morning person. I got up early so I can do my makeup and get filming ready, and still I feel so much more awake than I would know that I will at 9 o'clock at night. So I'll go over the linen again and the colors. So I'm working on a linen called Cloud Break from Roxy Floss Co. My cut happens to be in 40 count, and that's what I'll be stitching my model on. And I've got the various Roxy Floss Co colors, except for a few that my sister happens to have right now. So I have the DMCs that match it. So it's a very springtime, very jewel tone palette. I like the rich cool greens with the very warm pinks, all the peachy colors. I think that that's going to be very, very pretty. I know that peach and blue were huge colors to design with almost 10 years ago now, but they are still one of my favorite combinations and definitely one that I love for spring. So that's super nice. We'll come back to that in a minute because I have a little test stitch on there. Oh, I've got my trusty Cardi cocoon on today. It falls off all of the time and I just don't mind because it's so cozy. I knit this in Briggs & Little wool, I think 2 years ago. It's holding up great and I wear it all the time. My office is freezing. I don't know what it is about this end of the house, but it does not get as much heat. Okay. I'm gonna grab my pile of sketches. So the pattern that I'm working on for this piece started out as an idea while I was waiting in the mall for it to open because I wanted to get my hair cut a few months ago now, maybe 4 months ago. And I was trying to think ahead to spring and think, what would I want to work on at that time, which with it was probably kind of the middle of fall at this point. And what I kept coming back to was this idea of the birds coming back and that they would be coming home, and that's a really exciting time around here. I'm sure everywhere that gets winter, it would be an exciting time for. So I was trying to think about that, thinking about my peachy color palette. I knew that I sort of, just knew right away that I wanted to have a group of kind of apple blossom looking flowers, very white and pink. I think apple blossoms are white and pink, fairly sure. And then some kind of a building and birds kind of flying around it. Then the idea came to me that maybe it could be a barn, and it would be barn swallows kind of coming home to their barn that they've been living in, which hopefully it's an abandoned barn, because I know that if it's your barn and there's barn swallows in it, that's not the best thing. So let's imagine that it's abandoned and that nobody minds. Yes, so right there in the mall, I started drawing on my phone, and all I could think was, gosh, I hope nobody walks by, because if they think that this is how I draw, they're going to be embarrassed for me, even without knowing who I am. My husband and I laugh about my thumbnails all the time. Nobody could possibly decipher them. It's like a code. They don't make sense at all. So I'm going to show you that first thumbnail here up on the screen. I can't hold up my phone because I'm filming on it. So if you can tell, there are flowers in the one corner, and then two birds and a barn. And it stayed with me. I kept looking back on it and thinking, oh yeah, I got to make that. It made me feel like the pattern was started. I love my ridiculous thumbnails. And I even have another one here to show you. I found it last night and I thought, yeah, I better show that too. They're always like that. Like, this is a thumbnail for a pattern that I want to do kind of later in the spring, probably, or early summer. So, sneak peek. Not too much given away there, but I'm very excited for it. And I know what it means. Like, I look back on that and think, oh yeah, I can't wait to make that. I'm so excited, but like, they don't look like much. Okay, so back to the birds. Well, they're all birds, but back to the barn swallows. I did a bunch of thumbnailing after that on paper when I got home. And it actually took me a really long time to come up with something that I liked. I really wanted the flowers to be what you saw first. So I wanted these great big flowers and kind of little birds in the background and a little barn. And I realized that there was going to be so little detail in those birds and barn, that they were going to be kind of like the little Bob Ross V birds, which I might play around with one day. That still might be cool. But it felt to me like it was constantly competing. Like I ended up realizing that I wanted the birds to be more visible. So I ended up coming up with this sketch. I don't know if you can see that well. You can see the birds are a little bit bigger, but they're kind of leaving space for flowers. And still I felt that was a little bit competing. So not so much that you see the big flowers and then the bird, or the birds, but almost that you didn't know where to look. And I tried to resolve that by making the flowers, you can see in the sketch that the birds are much, much darker. So that was my thinking, was I'll make the flowers kind of lighter and lower contrast, and the birds will be much, much darker. So they won't compete so much, but they still kind of do. So from there, I started doing a sketch. Sorry, I'm moving my sketchbook. I kind of wanted to show you a little bit more out of this, but I might do that a little bit later. From there, I decided, okay, I'm going to draw this full scale. I tried jumping into charting and just seeing kind of what shapes and colors could look like and what it might look like with different stitch counts. Kind of thinking, okay, how much space do I have? But then I had to come right back out and draw it all the way full scale. I've got that here for you. And so this is more or less what the pattern will actually look like. And this is more or less the size. It's about 12 by 12. I think, I don't remember if that's 18 or 40 count that it comes out 12 by 12. And so you can see the flowers got a lot smaller. The birds are definitely the focus, and then the barn is kind of the third element that you notice. I think I put it in the sketch too. Yeah, I gave it some little trees behind it that I really like. I think it makes it kind of its own vignette, but not in a way that's distracting. And I like the way that the flowers kind of travel along the side and bottom. It sort of frames everything in without being what we would consider a traditional border. So that's where the drawing went. And I'm really happy with that. And so when I was working on that, I ended up drawing the whole thing in pencil. And then before I colored it in, I went to my flosses and I kind of picked out a palette that I wanted to use, making sure that it's enough colors that I'll be able to get detail in there, but not so many that you're buying like 30 colors for a pattern and only stitching, 50 stitches with each of them. And so I took that palette and I grabbed I have a couple sets of pencil crayons. And so what I'll do is I will take pencils out of each of these that closest match the flosses that I picked in my palette, and I'll put those in their own little pencil cup, and I will use only those colors. And I try to use them in a way that I sort of hope to chart. So I'll put like, okay, this is a little block of color here instead of the, shading and everything that you would normally do with pencil crayons. I try to keep it very distinct, almost like printmaking, where it's the color starts and stops very distinctly. Unless some people do a lot of blending with printmaking, but that's always my thought process with it. So that way, when I go into charting, I can see, okay, I was hoping that this floss would be used here, and it actually makes it so much faster. Especially with this drawing, I felt like maybe I took a little too long on it, but then in charting, it was going so quickly that it felt like it was justifiable in the end. Okay, making sure I'm not forgetting anything in my piles. No, got all my piles. Another thing I quickly want to touch on is part of where the inspiration came from for this piece. So I've drawn a few birds already for charts, and even since college, I have drawn just a lot of birds. I really enjoy them. But for this piece, it wasn't just birds in general that I was inspired by. I also have been really interested in some of the antique French samplers that you can stitch. The reproductions that are out there are wonderful. And I've been very inspired by the Contented Needleworker Kim, and I'll put her channel below if you like that kind of thing, if you like the antique French samplers and the very illustrated kind of painterly style. She does a lot of work like that. And not just antique French ones. She does a lot of other sampler stitching, and her channel is just wonderful. I watch a lot of her videos. I watch them all, but I often watch them again later while I'm charting. But yes, so I'm very inspired by a lot of those samplers, and I've been looking at a lot of antique French ones that are available, thinking that I'd be very inspired if I got to stitch those. And I know that they're very long-term projects, but I think I might actually try to stitch one maybe this year so that I can understand better how they use color and understand how they get so much detail into a small space. Like the samplers themselves have a very high stitch count. Often they're 300 stitches, 325 stitches wide. But if you look, each of the vignettes tends to be probably the size of a small. It's just that there's multiple across the sampler. So I want to see how is it that they're getting so much detail. Like it looks like an illustrated, painted, actual drawing, but it's cross stitch and it's very small. Anyways, I'm very excited at the idea of looking more into that. But that style is something that I was really inspired by with this, and I wanted to see, could I sort of take from that a little bit, add more of a modern element, and bring those things together. I also mentioned I did a little stitch sample to test the colors, just of one of the flowers. So it's not a lot to look at right now, but I did want to show you anyways because it ended up being really helpful. So if you look at the top here, this was just me testing colors. And the top of the flower is a little more brown and the bottom is a little brighter. And that's because I switched two of the colors. So the first one was more of a creamy color, and then I thought it would still look very light and bright, but as I stitched it, I was seeing that it was a little duller than I wanted it to be. I thought it would all sort of read as different tones of white, and in its own way it does, but I ended up switching it out for a very light pink, and that really brightened up the flower and helped it read as a white flower with a pink center versus almost a brown flower. I'll even show you. Got this, and I can grab, one second. So these are the two colors here. And that's the white that it's being stitched with. I can't get that forward, so that's okay. So initially I was thinking that these two colors would be a great framework for the white petals. And this is Snowy Owl by Roxy Flosco, and this is Mollusk, which I really like for kind of a creamy white. I guess not white, but like a dark creamy white color. But I ended up switching it to this white and pink combination. This is Moscato, which I've used a good handful of times. So I'm going to need to get a couple more, I think. And that ended up being what the white petals were made out of, which surprised me that I would prefer this. I would think that this would actually look darker, but it didn't. It looked brighter in the end. So I just really like test stitches and test swatching for that. And I'll show you it one more time just so you can kind of get that reference. So yeah, this is the top part with Mollusk. And then on the side here is the white petal with Moscato. And I think that it looks a lot brighter and gives the look that I was sort of hoping for. So that's that, and that's basically where I am with the pattern. So I've got maybe 2/3 of it charted, maybe probably closer to 55-60%. And so I'm excited to take you around, show you what I've got charted so far, and the charting software that I use. It's a pretty limited, simple software, but it's working. And yeah, just kind of keep you up to date with what I'm getting up to now that you're sort of up to date with where the project is so far. Yeah, so we'll see you upstairs. I think my kids are just getting up, so that's perfect. And yeah, we'll see what we get up to. So I tend to start my day right when my kids get up, around 7:30 or 7:45, and I will start off by making them breakfast. They really appreciate a slow start to the day. So while they're having breakfast, they're going to play some video games or watch a show. And that gives me my best window to get a little bit of work done in the morning before the day snowballs into playing with my kids, helping them with activities, and taking care of the house. So now that they have their breakfasts, I'm going to eat mine and do a little bit of charting. The charting software that I use is called Stitchly, and it was very affordable. It's very easy to use. It's not as comprehensive probably as some that are out there, but for now it is working really well. So I'm just going to work on these leaves a little bit. They are something that I sort of know what I want them to look like. I was happy with the other leaves that I did for this pattern so far. So they're a good fit for something to work on during the day. And then I can work on more troublesome elements in the evening. And all the while I'm looking away because my oldest daughter is playing a Pokemon game that she needs my help with. After lunch, I was able to take a bit of a break and sit down and stitch. This is something that I don't always think to do or make time to do, but I do find that it helps a lot with keeping my energy all the way through bedtime instead of me getting desperately tired after supper. And then I am back to regular life until after the kids go to bed. So this evening, what I really want to work on is the flowers in this chart because they are what's giving me the most trouble. I have drawn a lot of flowers. They're something that I come back to a lot, but even in the sketch of this pattern, I knew that the flowers were going to be what gives me the most trouble. I have ended up recharting the flowers many, many times and realized that I'm not coming to a solution just by redrawing them. So I decided to pull up several different antique French samplers and just look at them and try to see how they are resolving their flowers and what the difference is. Because their charts look very painterly, but they are done in cross stitch, whereas I paint a lot of flowers and these ones are just not working. after looking at a few different samplers and trying the same flower several times, what I realized is that I add too much detail into these flowers. So I'm trying to define each petal of the flower, which makes sense for painting and drawing, but doesn't make sense here. I'm noticing that in each of the samplers that I'm looking at, they tend not to define each petal and they shade the flower as a whole. So you end up using larger blocks of color, which is more convenient for stitching anyways. And the flower as a whole reads much better. It looks more like a flower, and you feel like you can see the detail of each petal, even though they are not individually shaded. So I end up recharting this flower several times, and I keep them side by side so that I can see my progress and see how much I can simplify it in order to help the flower look better and help the chart look better overall. For me, this was kind of a huge discovery. I've never shaded a flower as one element. That's just not how I would ever draw. So to get to do that here and to see how much better it was working was so exciting. It doesn't sound like something you should be excited about, but it felt like now this whole pattern was working better and that this is information that I can have going forward. So I can use this to make future patterns better as well. It was really fun to get to work on and also makes me very excited to stitch some of the French sampler reproductions because I feel like I could learn a lot just from seeing how it was that they put together these different flowers and birds and things like that, things that I like to draw anyways. Thank you so much for joining me today for this different kind of video. I really hope that you enjoyed hearing about how patterns come together over here, sort of what the design process is, and how I do my sketching and the inspiration for this piece in particular. Thank you for coming along with me as I go through my work day and also my mom life day. I hope you found it interesting, and I will hope that you will join me for the next one. If you are interested in this pattern, it will be released in the next 2 weeks here on my channel, and it will appear in my Etsy shop, which I will link down below. I hope you like how this pattern is coming together so far and that you liked hearing a little bit of where it comes from. Thank you again. Have a wonderful crafty day. I will see you in 2 weeks for my next video. Thank you. Bye-bye.